From our studio at the corner of 8th and Walton in Bentonville, Arkansas, welcome to Saturday Morning Meeting, where we cover Walmart, Sam's Clubs, and the consumer product companies that are represented on their racks and shelves around the country and around the world. I'm Derek Ridenauer, and we'll focus on insights, trends, and best practices that will help you do business better with the world's largest retailer. And coming up today, we're going to be joined by CSA Senior Recruiter Denise Natishin. And so if you're looking at building a team, joining a team, or switching teams in the supplier community, you're going to want to hear what Denise has to say. Also, we'll be joined by our panel, Robert Meyer and former Walmart Vice President John Murphy sit down and talk to us about the headlines. Plus, Mike Smith from the Harvest Group will be here to discuss their latest research with on-shelf availability. Right now, let's get into the headlines. A recent article on Retail Wire suggests the consumer packaged goods companies play favorites to larger chains such as Walmart when it comes to distribution, pricing, and promotion. Larger chains always seem to get the new items before the smaller retailers can. This past week, with the return of Twinkies, it was leaked that Walmart had gotten shipments before any other retailer and sold Twinkies before Hostess Brands LLC had actually wanted them out. According to an article in Forbes by Walter Loeb, it seems that size may now be working against Walmart in many ways, especially when it comes to holding the organization accountable for the customer experience. Mr. Loeb pointed to several examples during his most recent shopping trip to a store in Massachusetts, blaming weak leadership and a lack of associate engagement. Walmart has taken action to correct the situation and address the concerns in a statement responding back to the article. The recent Washington, D.C. issues highlights Walmart's efforts to move into urban markets, but retailers like Walmart have strong business reasons for wanting to be in D.C., Boston, and New York, where they don't have stores now. Real estate consultant Rob Grossman says that it enables them to ship online orders more efficiently. The store going forward will not just focus as a place to buy stuff. It'll have a couple different purposes. Obviously, a place to buy stuff. It will also be a place like a showroom to look at things, and it might also serve as a mini fulfillment hub. Walmart is touting its everyday low prices for back-to-school shoppers, noting that parents shopping at Walmart stores don't have to worry about confusion over gimmicky sales and promotions. In a statement issued by Duncan McNaughton, he says that we know that back-to-school shopping costs adds up, but parents can trust Walmart to keep prices low. Duncan McNaughton is the EVP, or the Executive Vice President, Chief Merchandising Officer for Walmart. He also added that we aren't playing games with our prices. The prices we advertise now will be the same low prices all season long. Stay tuned. Coming up, we're going to be joined by Robert Meyer and former Walmart Vice President John Murphy. And then later, we'll talk to Denise Natishin from Cameron Smith & Associates. You don't want to miss that. All coming up.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th and Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. 8th and Walton offers a suite of free courses on a variety of essential topics designed to help people new to a Walmart supplier team hit the ground running. Visit 8thandwalton.com/basic training to learn more.
And welcome back. We're joined now by Robert Meyer, who is the retail coordinator here at 8th and Walton, as well as John Murphy, former vice president at Walmart and involved with a lot of retail technology now. Welcome, guys. As we were talking about on the headlines real quick, CPG companies kind of playing favorites with retailers, some of the smaller retailers obviously complaining about that. Robert, you've worked for companies before, CPG in particular. Thoughts on that?
Well, I think that Walmart, first of all, is always going to follow the law and do what's ethical, but Walmart has a very efficient distribution system, and it allows them to get the products in and get it out for sale quickly. And I've read some of those articles talking about, Walmart being able to launch faster. You think about things that they do in media on launch dates, street dates, and things like that. And I think that's what's probably allowing them to get the products out earlier. But if you're a CPG company, you're going to take care of where your biggest business is. And obviously with the size and scope of Walmart, it's probably going to be there.
John, you've been around Walmart for a long time and doing some consulting now. In your experience, is that a good move for Walmart in terms of getting that out, or the CPG companies rather, in getting that out, or are they kind of shunning those smaller retailers, which ultimately could be the next Walmart? But is that a safe play for them?
I think it's a great play for them. I mean, Walmart is a wonderful company, and it still has wonderful associates, despite that Forbes article and Walter Loeb's comments and all that. It still has people that can really get the job done. But the CPG companies have to go to Walmart first, because they need to get their product out in front of that customer, and that customer has to see it. And that works very well still in entertainment with movies and that kind of thing. They still do a great job there. And with new items and grocery and that, you know, that's the place to go to get it out, to test it, to see whether or not it works. But there's a lot of complexity in this. You know, you got the CBG, you got, as you said, one of the best replenishment distribution systems in the world. But when it hits the store, it goes through a cloud of complexity that it's very difficult for the store to understand, because what you have are opening price point players at night, you know, and they're basically $1 over minimum wage, and their mind is not on their job, I'll tell you. So you've got to make it simple for them. But you have to have the complexity mathematically with your algorithms to make sure the flow is correct. It hits the store, but then you got to figure out how do you get it on the shelf.
You know, you brought up the story that I want to go into next, and Walter Loeb was in one of the Walmart stores in Massachusetts. Very bad article for Walmart in Forbes magazine. They obviously responded. Julie Murphy, the senior vice president, responded that they're taking steps to address that. You said you had a chance to talk to somebody who was actually in that store a couple of days after Walter was.
Right.
What did you see?
I just asked him because he happened to be up there on vacation, and I know Walter's got a home, summer home up there in the Berkshires, so you know he gets into that area quite a bit. But this friend of mine was working on a master's thesis, and he wanted to understand, and it's on replenishment. He wanted to understand what's going on. What did Walter see? And what he saw was, he said, "My goodness, that store must have had 8,000 outs or more." And he said it was dirty. It was. He said features were all over the place. Apparel was on the ground, and he could only count 2 cashiers. And there was nobody stopping anybody at the doors. It was a train wreck. I mean, you don't want a train wreck, you know. Walter, I mean, you know, Walmart is better than that. And basically he said, I was absolutely totally embarrassed for the company and for that particular store. You can throw new managers at them. I mean, I know regionals that have turned over 100 managers in their region in 1 year. All right, thinking that they're going to get better talent. Well, it comes down to better training, and it comes down to a level of simplicity that the associates can understand, so they can get it from the back door to the shelf, you know, as quickly as possible. So that then reinforces your CPG company. Hey, my goodness, my product's on the shelf. It's there. It's selling well, and I'll get a read on it. And that's where the complexity comes in, because if you can measure that, the rate of sale, the margins on a modular, and the integration of all those items, you can roll that up and be able to forecast what your needs are in changing replenishment demands.
So you think it all starts with training?
I think well, not only starts with training, it starts with simplicity. I remember Sam reading a quote from Sam about this. He said, forget all the gimmicks, all right? Get it on the shelf, all right? And when they talk about ad match, well, you got to remember that 30% of your customers are unbanked, right? And a lot of them don't speak English, and they're not going to challenge a cashier with an ad because they can't read it. So they're going to pay a higher price when they know the Fiesta down the street selling milk for 50 cents less. So I don't think Sam would have ever agreed with that. You've got to make it easy on the customer. You got to make it easy on the cashier, and you got to make it easy on the associates working on the store. So they are convinced that truly you are the lowest prices in town on the right items. And you don't have to be on every item, but you have to be on key items. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do.
So Robert, working with suppliers, what would you tell suppliers? Because obviously if I'm a supplier, I'm out of stock in those stores. How do I fix that? Yeah,
I think that this particular article, unfortunately, as bad as the conditions were, kind of point to one of two things. Either it is a store operations problem or it is a supply chain problem. And we've seen supply chain problems in other parts of the country, but it sounds like there were a lot of operational concerns that were brought up as well. But I think as a supplier, you really have to focus on what can you do in that last 100 yards to get it off the truck into the shelf. And a lot of suppliers are beginning to use retail coverage in a broad way. It's something that Walmart had in the past kind of shied away from, but a lot of suppliers are seeing the benefits. They have to have it. We were talking about the previous subject of the CPGs getting attention, and it might be because a lot of the suppliers are starting to pour more resources into retail coverage. You have to do what you can to get your products sold. They can't get sold unless they're on the shelf. So my suggestion, to suppliers is obviously need to execute, make sure you're hitting those must arrive by dates and that kind of thing. But take a look at store level. What can you do to contribute towards getting the shelves stocked? And it doesn't have to be nationwide. Maybe it's just in the most competitive markets.
But then, John, that goes back. We talked to Tom Coughlin a couple weeks ago. One of the things that he said is you can't do third party and maintain EDLC if suppliers are, because obviously suppliers are going to pass it along. Thoughts? Okay, and Robert brings up a good point. I mean, if I'm a supplier, which I am, I do use third party services to go in and make sure that some of my products stock because I know how that is. But how do you do that?
Well, first of all, again, going back to my earlier comments, you have to have a philosophy of everyday low prices, because that is a fundamental basis foundation for what we stand for. We sell for less, right? It's right out there on the corner of 8th and Walton, right? We sell for less. But when you go into a store and you see that Dr. Pepper at HEB is selling for $1 less, and you're not reacting to it, or Costco is selling milk for $1 less or 50 cents less, and you're not reacting to it, then you put a question in the mind of the customer. What's going on here? And you're not bolstering their confidence that you're working hard for them. And it doesn't take a lot of items. The other thing I'll tell you, and this is from a store manager that I actually talked to this morning, he said, the biggest issue I have is that we scan our outs every day, and it'll say that it's in the warehouse, but that item just will never show up. Yeah. You've heard that too, right?
Yeah, there's phantom inventory there in the system.
So what's going on? Well, the buyers are young, right? And they're graded based on their in-stock and what the system says, right? And they can cancel out that warehouse order or somehow, manipulate that. And I'm not saying that they do, but there's a perception out in the stores that that's happening, because there's certain key warehouse items that are never on the shelf and they can't seem to get them. It's very frustrating for them.
And for the customers.
And for the customers, right? It's driving them elsewhere.
Thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. And we will be right back. And when we come back, Mike Smith from the Harvest Group will be here to present their on-shelf availability paper. All of that is coming up.
This week's episode is sponsored by Store of the Community. We help grow sales and market share for some of the biggest brands in the world, one store at a time. Visit our website at storeofthecommunity.com.
And welcome back. We are joined now by Mike Smith from the Harvest Group. And back in May, well, actually last segment, we talked about on-shelf availability and in-stocks at a store in Massachusetts. And that continues to be an issue for Walmart. In May, you guys conducted a survey. And what did you find from that survey?
We asked suppliers across Northwest Arkansas what was the #1 barrier to growth for them with Walmart. And a clear and resounding response, basically winning by a landslide, was poor in-store execution and low on-shelf availability.
So what are some things that you guys have kind of been working on to help resolve that?
So we kind of approached it two ways. One with the shopper, what were their emotional reactions and kind of behavioral adjustments based upon an out-of-stock. We talked a little bit about that a few weeks ago, published a white paper that's, I believe, on your website. Right. We also attacked it from, what causes it? What are the contributing factors to OSA? Why is this such a big issue? Has it always been an issue? Is it a bigger issue? What's driving it? Those are the two things that we've really learned from talking to the shopper and doing some research.
So how does the supplier fix it? Or can they?
Well, some of the things are surprisingly simple, very fundamental in the business, and they're things that actually can be influenced and improved. And across most of these elements, there's ownership by Walmart and there's ownership by the supplier.
What are some key things that you found, key metrics or metrics that you found kind of cause a low OSA?
Sure. A lot of variables, but there's 5 that continue to come up as we dug into the issue and went deep on the topic. The first one is what we call shifts in consumption, and some of those are unexpected, and really there's not a lot that you or Walmart can do to properly prepare for a storm or some kind of seasonal shift where the spring season started in March in Georgia last year, and this year it's waiting until May, or vice versa, where it's come earlier. But there's a lot of things that are really improperly planned for around seasonality that could be taken advantage of and leveraged. For example, Walmart lives in a world of averages. And if you look at a seasonal fine line for your replenishment settings, you may be in there with 50 items, 100 items, 500 items, and your 3 SKUs may look very different than how those 50, 100 big groups of items move. So you've got to tease out your items, go back to Walmart with a plan to help really dial in the store and item combination performance. There's a couple other factors around consumption. One is dealing with the paycheck cycles. Is your category, do you really understand if your category is heavily impacted by the 1st and 15th with the paycheck cycle? Are you impacted by things like SNAP and WIC? And different states have different dates that they deploy those funds. And if you're a category in baby, or if you're even a staple consumable item, you're probably impacted by that. And if you're not digging deep enough and working back with your buying team and replenishment team to help prepare yourself for that, you could likely have an out of stock due to an inventory issue. One of the other big factors, and the one that's probably the most commonly talked about and pointed, is the in-store labor opportunities that Walmart has. And if you listen to Mike Duke, whether it be at any company meetings, YBM, shareholders, the earnings releases, he talks about growth, leverage, and returns. And unfortunately, the past couple quarters, growth hasn't been what any of us want it to be. But leverage and returns are still what the company has to deliver despite that. And if you think of what's going on in the marketplace, Wall Street is fairly forgiving right now on some revenue misses, but not forgiving at all on earnings misses. So as that top line struggle is occurring, Walmart's pulling a lot of levers to make the bottom line work. Other than cost of goods, their biggest expense is labor. So for them to enable that, that is a common tactic for them to deploy. And if you're optimistic about the rest of the year, you may think that's going to change. If you're a half glass empty guy, you may think that's probably something we're going to be battling for the next few quarters and beyond. A lot of suppliers try to deploy services against that, not just at Walmart, but across retail. We frequently use third-party retail as a labor Band-Aid. And I think it's a fair question to ask, are you really moving the needle with that? Is that team going in and working on the things that really drive and can improve OSA, or are they focused on other tactics? Another factor that we found that really drives low OSA is dealing with some of the complexities that Walmart has added over the past few years to its in-store systems and processes. These tools have really been designed to drive ROI, save inventory, take labor out of the store, not necessarily be the best tool at driving OSA. So the more that you know as a supplier how those things impact your business, how is your product picked? How is it binned? How does your case pack and your shelf capacity impact the store's ability on third shift to adequately fill your product to the fill versus getting a lot of your product in the back room and being binned, which is basically a form of la-la land. Product gets back there and it doesn't always come out. So what are the things that you could be doing with your sales team, your retail team, working back with your buying team to influence that? The fourth area that we saw was really some of the blocking and tackling. You'll hear Walmart say retail is detail, and there's probably no other area outside of replenishment and your supply chain where that statement is truer. And I think that, again, some of this comes back to shared responsibility. One of the things in your supply chain that Walmart's focused a lot on over the years has been SCR, supply chain reliability. And that's kind of been their way to help them, again, Band-Aid the labor issue on OSA. If your fill rate is perfect, if your MABD is perfect, and they're never going to be perfect, but if they are 95%, 98%, those are things that will really help make sure that, you know, a key part of the three-legged stool, inventory, labor, and kind of the know-how to get it done, can be fulfilled. Without the inventory, the other two don't matter. Forecast accuracy is another big one. Again, this is where the averages of Walmart tends to hurt a lot of suppliers, especially smaller suppliers, is that you may have a forecast of 10,000 pieces for the week, and you may sell 10,000 pieces, but 50% of the stores were over by 50%, and 50% of the stores were under by 50%, and that will actually give you a very positive read, perfect forecast accuracy. But if you're not digging to the store item level and really understanding what is my forecast accuracy by store, you're leaving a lot of consumption on the table. So again, things that you would think that Walmart owns, but there's a lot of collaboration and a great need in the Walmart labor model, even here in Bentonville, to rely upon the supplier teams to go that deep in their business to bring them back the solutions to execute and enable better inventory flow and OSA.
Have you seen GRS impact any of this?
You know, GRS is interesting because it's rolling out kind of category by category, and Walmart will tell you that it's going to lead to better forecasting, kind of real-time JIT demand forecasting. The categories that I've had exposure to that have been on GRS, I would say it's been a little bit of a rocky road, especially maybe the first 13 weeks out the gate. But I am hearing that the further into the life cycle of GRS, the better it's getting.
One thing I've heard about GRS, and I met with the senior director this last week, SSOs should never be used in GRS. Are you hearing that?
Yeah, it is right. It's maybe a system built by an engineer, not a merchant or someone who's optimizing as much as we could sell. It's built more for efficiency and modeling and predictive type production and forecasting. So anything that is going to be a variable outside of that, like an SSO, is going to impact its ability to do its job to the best of its ability. Now, does that mean it's going to help you maximize sales? Maybe not. Is it going to maximize your forecast accuracy? Probably. I think that's a big conversation for the supplier and buyer to have. What are we chasing? Are we here to sell more stuff, or are we here to just be efficient?
Okay. Final things?
No, I just think that the key in all of that is there's a lot of controllables in here. And it's easy to step back and point the finger at Walmart and say, you've got an in-store process issue, you've got an in-store labor issue. And those things are true, and you need to continue to work to influence that at the home office. But I think there's a lot of internal accountability and opportunity for suppliers to really step back, do some hard self-diagnosis, and understand, am I digging into all the details that possibly could improve this within my own camp? And some of that's messy, some of it's the minutia. Most big corporations are not so into that. They're sales and marketing driven. They've got a sales and marketing leadership team, and most come up through that part of the organization, which is great. But there's got to be equal focus on some of those retail as detail elements to really win at Walmart.
Okay. And if somebody wants more information on this, they can contact you?
Absolutely. We're going to be producing our second white paper. A couple weeks ago we did the shopper focused element. Next week will be the contributing factors and what to do about them. They are going to be on the 8th and Walton website, I believe, so feel free to go there and access it. They could also reach out to our website, harvestg.com, for more information and how to get a copy of the white paper.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for coming in. And stick around, Denise Natishan from CSA will join us next.
Today's show has been sponsored in part by 8th and Walton, the premier destination for Walmart supplier education. 8th and Walton offers a variety of services including new supplier onboarding, scorecard optimization, and analysis and reporting. Visit 8thandwalton.com/services to learn more.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. If you are looking to join a supplier team, build a supplier team, or switch supplier teams, one company you definitely want to talk to is CSA Recruiters. And with me now is Denise Natishan, Senior Partner with Cameron Smith & Associates. Denise, thanks for taking time to talk to us today. I want to get things started. You guys have been in business now for about, 20 years?
Almost 20 years.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in terms of the quality of people that have come in and the supplier teams that are here?
Good question. I think that since I started, especially with Cameron, I've noticed the caliber of the candidate has changed significantly. So while companies back in the day would hire people without degrees, that's absolutely a critical piece right now. So in terms of technical skills, being able to go beyond the numbers, used to be just to be able to pull a retail link report was sufficient. Now, unless they can go beyond the numbers and tell a story, that's not good enough. So caliber of the candidate is critical.
What's one of the biggest things that you see kind of lacking on supplier teams that maybe some of the big companies like the P&Gs or the Unilevers may be scrambling now to try to bring on board? What is that, like one skill set that most teams may seem to be missing?
I think it's the social, when it look at the skill set, I think it's more the types of positions that they're going to be looking at. So e-commerce, social media, digital, all those areas have to be brought to the fore in order to stay current and to stay relevant. We've talked about what were the people that were competitors for Walmart, and in the past it might have been looking at Dollar General. We're looking at Amazon as one of those competitors. So smart companies are staying ahead and really dealing with that as far as a way to build up their teams here locally. And that includes social insights or looking at consumer insights, the trends that are taking place, and going beyond just what the numbers say.
If somebody's wanting to get into the supplier community, yes. And I've talked to some people that are wanting to do that, and they want to call you, what's your advice to them?
My advice is simple. I think that people really need to understand what's going on in the supplier community or what they have glamorized as far as what the jobs actually look like. So I would say there's a couple avenues that they could take. Courses at 8th and Walton, for instance. I mean, I think that you have to love numbers, you have to love to be analytical, you have to have that kind of passion. Walmart is the largest customer for most of the teams that are here. So if they're going to put their best and their brightest people on the teams, you need to be able to step up to the plate. Understand what the job is about so you can do things like take courses, job shadow somebody, sit down, do an interview, ask somebody what their day-to-day life is like as far as a vendor is concerned, because I think we have a little bit of a misconception of what actually takes place.
Now, I've also heard and kind of seen and read stories that sites like LinkedIn are kind of the new way to find your next job. Monster.com, I know you and I talked about this, but Monster.com, Career Builder, those were big, late 90s, early 2000s. Those seem to have largely gone away. I know that they're still out there, but they don't seem to be as effective as what they once were. How are you seeing sites like LinkedIn and Facebook in the job search?
I've get that question quite a bit, and I know back in the day they said that it was when career builders and hot jobs were coming along that we were going to be replaced. There is nothing that can replace a good recruiter, both for the company and for the candidate. Because when you think about it, it's about being invited to the interview. And as a company, you're going to want a passive candidate. You're not going to want somebody that's throwing their resume out all over the place. And as a candidate, you need to be careful about that because there's companies that are advertising their jobs. In fact, I've heard stories of people who have actually applied for their job from their own company, and their company sees their resume and they've been let go. So now that's the severe end of it, but at the same time, your name out there all over the place, it doesn't matter. It's the personal touch. It's us being like a real estate agent for you or a talent scout. So when you're looking as a talent scout, we're constantly looking for the best and the brightest to be able to introduce to our clients, to our companies. And so that's what you want is good representation. Somebody's going to manage your career, help you through it, ask good questions, and be able to place you in the right place. So whether it's the right house, whether it's the right company that you go to, the team, those are the kinds of things that we're able to do that you can't get from a website.
All right. Well, Denise, thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time to join us. If you have questions about anything you've seen today or you'd like to see the entire interview with Denise, you can log on to the website, 8thandwalton.com, and check out the one-on-one segment. Also, if you have questions or comments about the show or are interested in being a panel member or would like to contact us, you can do so by emailing us at Saturday@8thandwalton.com. Thanks again for taking the time to join us, and we look forward to seeing you next Saturday morning.